Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa after salati ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. As the brother has stated, the reason that we are incorporating different areas of AIP into our lives as a group is because we are in a state in the Ummah and a state in our community and a state in our homes. The experiences that I've had regarding the issues that are affecting the Muslims as well as affecting the Muslims as well as the non-Muslims is because we're living in an environment, and you can't live in a cancer and not get affected by that cancer. It's much like walking past a burning building and you get home and the smoke is stuck on your clothes. The uniqueness of AIP, I don't know if you guys can read that at the back or not. AIP cares about making powerful changes in people's lives, private and professional lives. Our work with the client focuses on a personal, obviously within boundaries level, because this is where the most inspiring solutions are found. The ruh, the soul. AIP is all about empowering people. We build awareness through person-centered therapy of the deeper structures underlying the conflicts and challenges in the person is facing within themselves. This awareness allows them to make the changes needed and puts them back in the driving seat of their life. We understand at AIP that your circumstances are very personal and does not offer you generic ready-made solutions. However, there is only one person who knows the best way to approach your challenges, and that's you. AIP is all about supporting you in your quest to self-actualization. There are many therapies in counselling. I'm not sure, anyone here a counsellor? No one here a counsellor? Anyone wishing to be a counsellor? Who wants to be a counsellor? A coach, life coach? Alhamdulillah. So, the therapies that are out there, some of them are conducive to Islam and some of them are not conducive to Islam. And at IAP we put together the generic counselling that we can use within the boundaries of Islam that can help the Muslims as a whole. But it all starts with the individual. The changes can only be made once the changes of oneself are made, and not blaming others and looking for others to make their change, especially the problems between husband and wives. The issues between husband and wives now is a big problem. I'm dealing with it every single day. And it's all about miscommunication or no communication at all. And the husband's waiting for the wife to change by saying she needs to do this and she needs to do that. And she's saying he needs to do this and he needs to do that. And I asked her, what do you need to do? You know, everyone said, I want my wife to be like a Sahabi. I said, well, you're not like a Sahabi yourself, and vice versa. So the idea of communication is very, very important. Growing up in my culture, Turkish culture, obviously there wasn't much, communication between my parents, and my dad's sitting there, so I can't really say too much, but, and it was only in my later years that I was able to communicate what I wanted to communicate to my parents, and that was in the later stages of my life. The Asian community, however, is a bit more deeper than that. I mean, I'm dealing with the Asian community much more so than any other community. And you all know as much as I know that to tell your father or your mother something that you wish to tell them, whatever the subject matter is a big problem. It's like I was talking and barking up a wrong tree or talking to the wall. And that's the reality of the situation. So what is Islamic counselling or counselling and coaching? I put down a path to allowing the client to address issues known and unknown to them without hindrance from the helper, which is the counsellor or the helper, the counsellor and coach, and without any judgment nor advice, with full intention and purpose, allowing the client to explore their inner self and subsequently arrive to their own actualization and freedom from the conflict. It is with reference recognizing the potential in a person given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that he who wants to be free of pain and constant unfounded fear and only have fear for his Lord must recognize that his first step is to conform to the boundaries set by his Lord and recognize that Allah ta'ala is in full control of everything. One of the musings I wrote down, there is only transformation out of pain if one realizes the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Obviously, we deal with Muslims all the time, right? And I'm sure you know Muslims who have problems and calamities that are affecting their lives, whether it be friends or family or within yourself. But you say to them, like, if you went to a doctor and you said that you have an ailment, and they said they gave you a prescription for it, do you think that you will actually get cured if you don't take that medicine? And Allahu A'lam, I'm saying this, even the medicine they give you is the cure is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's just a means to an end. So if you say to someone, holistically speaking, when someone comes for counselling, we treat them holistically. Meaning that I always ask about the nutrition, their sleep pattern, and specifically their 5 daily prayer. And specifically, out of them 5 daily prayers, the Fajr prayer. Because we know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stated that anyone that wakes up in the morning for prayer, makes a good wudu, and prays a good salah, then he'll be fresh all day. But if he doesn't, then he'll be, in huzn, would be oppressed all day and be sad all day and depressed, basically. And we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, anyone that abstains from my reminder, I'll give him a ma'ishdan danka, a narrow life, a depressive life. So somebody wants to remove their conflict or their pain or their depression or their anxiety, but they don't want to turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the first and foremost step. That's the first direction you have to turn to. And we know Muslims like this, if you're not one yourself. It's very important to understand that Allah's way is the only way. So in conclusion, we know from Quran and Sunnah that we have to purify. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, Ibn Ghazali and others rahimahumullah. So it's important to know that anything, that if you go to see a Muslim counsellor or coach, that they are, or a raqi, a person who gives a spiritual healing through exorcism, is that you understand they have to be on the path. They have to be God-fearing. We don't know the hearts of the people, but at least they're praying 5 times a day, they're doing the obligatory fara'id, then there's no problem, inshallah. I've known so-called Muslim counsellors who their clients have come to me and said, I went to a Muslim counsellor and they said it's okay to have boyfriends over the phone or things like that. So it's, there are things that are not allowed in the bounds of Quran and Sunnah. There are 2 methodologies, in my opinion, in regards to self-learning and counselling. There is the far-out philosophy of the Kalam of certain extreme Sufi groups which take the purity we have in Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The other being, as we mentioned, the very practical steps of scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah who are heeded. Now on that point, there are controversial issues regarding self-development. You have certain groups who say that I'll give my shaykh bay'ah and he'll take me straight to Jannah, you may pay him £12, £30 and he'll guarantee it. Or far out extremes such that when they say things like, when the person is dying, the angel of death is not going to take his soul, but I will take your soul and give it to the angel of death. Or when Munkar and Nakir come into the grave and they come to ask you, don't worry, I'll be there to help you answer the questions. These are some extreme Sufi shuyukh out there. I don't like to call them shuyukh in that region, in the sense of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, because this is a cult. And it's not to step on any toes, but the truth has to be spoken. I've seen many groups, not that I've been with them, but I've gone to see them. And most of the time, I nearly got beaten up and got thrown out. But that's the way it is. They don't like to be told the truth. And I'm not going to get into Sufism or Wahhabism, etc., etc. You can go and do research of that by yourselves. AIP incorporates both generic and Islamic counselling core skills through person-centered counselling. Person-centered counselling is one of the theories that was advanced by Carl Rogers in the 60s, who have given core conditions in regards to listening skills with a client. Mainly unconditional positive regard, empathy, and congruence. Congruence being that you are you're present, you're there for the here and now. You're not looking at your watch. Your intent is with that person that you're trying to help. Unconditional positive regard, basically being non-judgmental, showing empathy, and within the boundaries of the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, and that's one of the reasons I've had an Association for Islamic Psychotherapy, because the BACP is only beginning now to recognise cross-cultured help in regards to counselling, coaching, etc., etc. Islamic values and boundaries, whilst counselling, directing the client only to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, self-awareness and accounting, introducing yourself to yourself, a new AIP concept with many others, as in the first one, direct active listening, only within the boundaries of Quran and Sunnah, and directing the person to the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Question, case study. Someone comes to you, a Muslim, and says, I have homosexual tendencies. Now within the boundaries of the BACP, you can't really judge the person in that sense. But with the AIP, your whole being is to speak the truth to that person. Your whole essence of the directive of an Islamic counsellor is to direct that person back on the right path. And I've had many cases like this. And it's not like, oh, this is haram, astaghfirullah, how can you do it? Well, that's okay, not really helping the person. You're only here to pass on the message. Okay, you pass the message on, and it's up to him and his heart, who Allah subhanahu scans and checks and then directs that person. When the truth is told, a person takes two routes: becomes humble and accepts, or becomes arrogant and rejects. But that's up to the person. There's no standing on the edge. There's no standing on the fence and saying, I'll decide. If you're on the fence, you're not on the right path. You're not on the fence. If you're on the fence, you're not on the truth, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent through Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Direct active listening. We have listening, then we have active listening, and we have direct active listening. Listening, obviously, you hear people speak, and direct active listening is listening, but you're trying to hear the unspoken word through body language. They're saying one thing, but they mean something else, and it's up to the trained counsellor to hear and see that, I think you're saying that, but I'm hearing this, or I'm hearing that. And it's important to understand this. And one of the examples that I give is, for example, the husband comes home and usually they say, my back is hurting, my feet are hurting me, isn't it? And then the wife says, oh, you think you've had it bad. I had to look after the kids, I had to cook, I had to clean, I had to do this, etc., etc. But what is he trying to say? What is he trying to communicate across, which he should make really clear? Anyone? When he comes up and says, oh, my back is hurting me on a really bad day, my feet are hurting me, she's hearing, oh, it's all about him, isn't it? It's all about you. What about me? I've got 4 kids to take care of, 5 or 6 or 7, 8, 9, 10, mashallah. I have to cook, I have to clean. I have to wonder what time you're coming home, is the house doing, etc., etc. But when he comes in, what should she be hearing? Give me time to come in, relax, let me have my dinner, have a shower, and we'll sit down and talk about your day, it's not a problem. But that happens also because there's no communication on a regular basis between husband and wife. So she can say, it's okay, he's going to give me time to speak about how I feel. Most of the time it's not like that. Or the husband comes home and she's saying, you're always out, you're never home. You're never home? So I wasn't home last night, that's not a consolation to say, well, I was home the other night. I was home 2 days ago, even though I haven't been the last 2 nights, etc. So she's using 2 borderline personality disorder vocabulary, always and never. That's an impossibility. It's not always, something doesn't always happen like that, and you can never say never home, literally. So what is she saying that he should be hearing? I'm just interactive, there's not rhetoric, I'd like to get some response. So what is she saying?
You're not spending enough time.
Yeah, I miss you, you're broke, the boundaries have gone, the balance, I need you too, my husband, You're always out there giving da'wah, you're always out there, with your friends and the sheikhs and etc., etc. You're never home. But you have to have the balance. And this also ties in with time management. So to be, a good Islamic counsellor is to be, counselling yourself first and knowing where you are. And it takes a long time to self-actualize in your own self, to know who you are, how to manage your time, how to give the right response, how to allow things, not to respond, in fact not respond, not to react all the time. But that's what we do. We always react. We never respond. We don't think before we speak. We just blurt out because our ego takes over. These are some of the other theories and approaches to counselling. Gestalt, which is basically, you can Google these and YouTube these theories. There are other theories that are not conducive to our way, and I don't put them on there. Some of the things like existentialism is not conducive to Islam, but I've picked out one or two, the here and now and being present. Gestalt is about being straightforward with the client. If you go onto YouTube and type in Fitz Pearls and Gloria, you'll see that he's directive. This is in the 70s. He even said to her, you're fake. So it's about challenging. It's more of a challenging stance. Some clients, when they have really deep issues, you can't really use some of these directives. You can't be too challenging. You've got to be more showing more empathy, more congruence, more understanding for them to reach a certain level. If they had 20, 30 sessions, with too much here, I'm exaggerating that, usually 12, 13, 14 sessions, and they still haven't actualised the bit, they haven't come into themselves, you can challenge them. And you say, look, you've been here 14 sessions, I don't mind taking your money, but not going anywhere. You've been saying the same thing, don't you want to move on? And if they say, I want to move on, but I don't want practically to do, then you can start using practical steps and other challenging directives. Existential, here and now, being present. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now. Okay, Allah is now. Allah is not the past or the future. There is no time directive or chronological time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created time. So the creation of the pen, my birth, my death, the First World War, the birth of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the First War, Second World War, everything, the people going to Jannah, Yom al-Qiyamah, is happening now to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the sense He knows what's going to happen, so He knows what's going to happen. But Allah is now being present. The reason I mentioned that is most people go into the past and they get stuck there. With the whispers of shaitan, they say, oh, that was a good time you had 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and you live in that time because you don't like to be here. You don't want to be here in the here and now and be present and doing what needs to be done. So you get stuck there instead of coming to the present and learning from your mistakes of the past, but coming and staying in the present so you make the same mistakes again. Or people go into the future and they imagine themselves who they want to be or where they want to be. And they get stuck there. So they're in delusion. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this 10 years, later 20 years, they say the same thing. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And nothing happens in their life. So they don't come back and set a 6-month plan, a year plan, a 3-year plan, and be directive on that point. And these are because they have issues, residual emotions from past relationships in Jahiliyyah, or present relationships in Islam, or relationships within themselves. Most people don't know who they are within themselves and why they behave that way. A person can be a very, 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 very good person, but they make mistakes. And these are mistakes which include the pain, which transforms them if they can see the calamity as being a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Instead of saying, why me, why me, why me? And it's vital as Muslims to understand that. Anything that comes from you, to you, is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any calamity that you are feeling is from your own self. You have caused that happening. The directive then is turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you ease through that pain and transformation. Allah is not an oppressor. Allah will not give you, Allah does not burn the soul beyond its capacity, so Allah will give you something knowing that you'll get over it if you have the patience for it. We'll do more of that when we do the main seminar on problems and perceptions. But I found person-centered therapy to be more humanistic and close to Islamic values according to the Quran and Sunnah, although there are some parts of other theories which can also be used generically. I mean, I opt for the person-centered approach initially. I think all counsellors go for that approach initially anyway. You must have the core skills within you. Listening skills, empathy, congruence, and intention. It's all about intention. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, when the couple has nushuz, then choose hakum from her family, hakum from your family. And if your intention is pure, whose intention though is here? If your intention is right. What the scholars say about intention here? The couple's intention or the mediator's? It's the mediator's intention here. That's what the scholars say. When Allah is saying if the intention is right, but whose intention here? It's the mediator's. Has to be correct. then Allah have mercy on the couple, inshallah. Obviously, it's general for all the three of them, but the scholars say that here the mediator's intention is vital. So the person-centered approach, out of many theories, I found this to be what allows me, myself, to be a better counsellor, and it being conscious to Islamic teachings helps to work out internal struggles rather than immediate solutions like some other therapies, like CBT. Anyone know CBT, cognitive behaviour therapy? That is what now the councils and the NHS are using, because it's cost effective. They give you 6 sessions, sometimes 20 minutes each, 6 sessions at 1 hour each. And it does work. It's about reframing the way you think, rational, changing the automatic negative thoughts to a more positive one, seeing what is rational or not. When a person sees the rational, they'll come out of their delusion. Inshallah. But with CBT, it's not really long term, it's practical, it's like life coaching. Counselling is different from life coaching. Life coaching is more of a sense of, you know, a kick up the rear end basically. A person procrastinating, and you're there to guide that person, say make that call, you know, send your CV, do what you need to do. Everyone needs a helping hand. Sometimes people pay for that helping hand. Friends are not good enough sometimes. Al-Mu'min al-Mu'min, that the believer is a mirror for a believer, we know, but where are the believers to mirrors for each other? Where are they? If I have people around me that don't say to me, you know, there's something wrong with me, or they tell me what my shortcomings are, then they're no good to me. Why are the brothers hanging around with me if they're not going to tell me where I'm going wrong? There's no point to that. And you've got to look around, you've got to look at your surroundings and see who your friends are. If your friends are always laughing and joking with you and wasting your time and dragging you down and dragging their time, it's time to start doing some muhasabat an-nafs and start self-accounting yourself and start deciding on where you have to leave that circle, that vicious circle. Start exploiting the other areas of your life and getting yourself to a better plane, a better quality of life, Islamically. A couple of verses I wanted to mention. Allah says, وَمَنْ يَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. Allah says, but for him who shall turn away from remembering me, I'll give him, she shall be a life of narrow scope. A depressive life. You know, why always feeling down and nothing's really happening. You know, it is vital that you keep on top of your Islamic obligations. You know, people start, you know, you see people wherever you go, Muslims and non-Muslims, they speak about certain things that happen in their lives and where they want to be, and you would say to them, look, the final door that you have to open in completion to the journey of oneself is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if a person's completing the Islamic obligations and they have problems, you go to medicinal intakes. You go to doctors and find out if there's anything wrong, physically, physiologically. If not, then you go to mental health people and find anything wrong. If they're not, then you go to people who do ruqya. Then you start to turn to the spiritual. But these days people are always saying, oh, you know, there's something wrong with me, I must have jinn, I need ruqya, I need ruqya, I need ruqya. Go to the doctor and find out what's going on first of all. And get that out of the way, inshallah. Also, in the same light, when people go to Western medicine, in regards to like the GPs, for example, they can only tell, they can only be aware of certain ailments in the body once it gets pathological, meaning it's actually apparent. But Eastern medicine, prophetic medicine, even Chinese medicine, herbal medicine, these doctors have many deeper interactions with the human body. That's why they can tell when they can tell the balance of the body being in balance with the pulses of the body, the iris, even the tongue. They can read it with knowledge, obviously, and they can tell what's wrong with you. For example, personally, I've been through, and I prefer. You know, prophetic medicine, Chinese medicine, more than Western medicine. And that's proven in my own life. Because I couldn't find solutions, there's nothing we can check for. But I know there's something wrong. And I went to three individual non-Muslim Chinese herbalists, and I went to a Muslim one. And they all different areas of England, and they all said the same thing. Your liver's weak. So there must be something in it. much more so. But the brother who checked me last, he checked my pulse and my iris and my tongue, and he said the reason that Western medicine cannot check it until it gets pathological apparent is they can't go deeper than what their machinery or the blood tests can take them. But Eastern medicine can go, if the liver function is from 1 to 4, they can only tell there's something wrong when it gets to 2.5 to 3 upwards. But when it comes they can always tell there's something wrong when it gets from the liver or any function of any organ of the body moving from 1 upwards. They can tell by the pulse, your pulse and your tongue and your iris. So it's important to know that we deal with things holistically. There is, I mentioned this, there's another verse in regards to this, that Allah will give you a qareem, the shaitan, if you're not on the right path from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that shaitan is there for you to whisper to you, do wrong things all the time, trip you up, make sure, whatever it is, mistakes, anything and anything in your life. So the first and foremost thing to do is check on this, am I following Allah's command? Am I moving towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If I'm not, then that's the real medicine. The medicine, the shifa' is in the Quran and Sunnah. There's not anywhere else. If you are in the Quran and Sunnah, if you're on the right path and you completely do what the best you can, you pray 5 times a day, your Sunnah, mu'aqqada, everything, and still the doctors don't know anything, then you go to Ruqya, a person does Ruqya for you, and inshallah it's a spiritual purification you need. Inshallah. Any questions, sir? Any questions? No questions? Brother.
Does everyone have a qareem? Does everyone being
You have a qareem, but the person who, you have your jinn, but then Allah strengthens that jinn. So you're not only dealing with your qareem, but you're dealing with the floaters, the ones that walk near you, walk by you, the shaitan himself. You know, so how many are you dealing with? So it's important that but your qareem, you're reducing. When you pray and turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you reduce, can't do much to you. And He's the one who can really do things, because He's always with you. And talk to other jinns, come this person's weak, this person's whatever, and call other jinns to make it easy. But the brother will, Abu Ruqya will deal more in that in the next session, inshallah. Yeah. As regards to counselling itself, one thing that I want to mention as a final conclusion is you cannot be a counsellor without being counselled yourself. Okay? Because, for example, A goes to B, not counselling, but A goes to B for advice. Now B, instead of being objective in the matter, because B has residual emotions or residual issues that have been dealt with, they will answer in that directive. They'll become subjective. For example, A will go to B and say, oh, I don't know what to do about my wife, this, that and that. And B will say, well, if it's my wife, I'd have divorced her, blah, blah, blah. Well, she's not your wife and it's not your situation. This is why it's important that when you go for advice, although counselling is not advice, by the way. You don't advise anybody when you're counselling. You listen and you help the person listen to themselves by hearing what they don't. And paraphrasing it back, summarising it back, so I don't think of that, etc. So it's important that you deal with your issues first, because what will happen is, if you don't and you see a client, and that client talks about an issue that hits home, you may not be able to hold it. You may not be able to hold it. I don't literally hold it, but it's too much. And if the client sees you break down, you're sorry, I can't speak, and there's the conflict of interest then. You know, something we call transference, where you can feel that, it's like empathy, you're very close to, oh, I feel that. Or you meet someone, and say, why am I angry at this person? Why am I feeling angry to this person? And you say, I'm feeling angry, how are you feeling? You know? It's very important. Human nature is so parallel, it's very deep. You know, you can sense, the closer you are to someone, the more you sense them. So when you have a client and counsel relationship, that's what it is, a relationship. About trust, etc. It's trust. Once you gain the trust of the client, then they will speak about things that they want to speak about. Most clients go beat around the bush, but it's up to you to guide them. Say, well, a minute ago you spoke like this, or there was you're conflicting what you're saying, etc. Because they don't know themselves. They're depressed and so, you know, in their thing, in their stuff. It's unreal. It's difficult to come out.
How do you not get too attached to your client, like emotionally?
Well, it's the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sometimes you do get attached to your client. You know, it's up to you to hold it. There are boundaries which you have to adhere to. If you do have feelings, you talk about, you know, emotional feelings.
Yeah, emotional, like, if like their situation's affecting you and your...
Well, in the Islamic counselling, obviously you won't be counselling the opposite gender, obviously.
No.
But if you got, you know, obviously counselling, unless there's family or the husband's there, etc., with marriage counselling. But you know, it's one-to-one. The more you deal with your own stuff, the more you're able to hold it and not get emotionally involved, not get subjective. You can't get subjective with a client. Their stuff is only your business as far as you're helping them understand their stuff. Otherwise, it's their stuff. You know, we project a lot of stuff on other people, even in marriages. The husband says something about to the wife, but really it's the husband that's like that, and vice versa. But if you don't get any training or understanding these concepts, you won't know that. And most marriages do break down because then there's no communication. And that's a sorry state of affairs. You need to learn how to communicate. And there's no better way for that than to start as soon as possible. Assalamu alaikum. How could you be a mediator for a couple going through marital problems if only one side wants a mediator whilst the other strictly doesn't? Again, Islamic counselling is different. If you know, mediation is fard, because unity is fard. So if the husband says, I want to get a mediator in to deal with this situation, and then the wife doesn't, then there's going to be some kind of vital input by the husband to say, look, this marriage is not going to last, let's get somebody on the outside to help us. I'm willing to save this marriage. Are you? You know, forget your ego, forget my ego. Do you want to save this marriage or not? It's all about being authentic and honest. If you're not honest with your spouse, who can you be honest? If you can't be honest with the person that you're living in the house, day in and day out, then I would guess, to be bold, that your relationship with Allah is not right. At the end of the day, if there's a problem between husband and wife, or any problem, you deal with it with Quran and Sunnah. Let's see what Allah is saying about this matter. What does Allah and Rasulullah saying about this matter? But the thing is, if we don't deal with Quran and Sunnah, then what we're going to do, we're going to try and solve it with dunya solutions and ego. Ego can't resolve it. Ego just wants to destroy everything in its path. It's a beast. It has to be controlled. So one side wants it, the other doesn't. Well, you can advise your spouse and say, you know, I want to save this marriage, do you? It's a challenge. And leave the ball in their court. And so I'll give you 3 days to respond. If not, I'm going to take it further. And that's the way it goes, otherwise you'll be suffering in your own self. I know some sisters say, I'd rather stay in a marriage and get, brothers say, stay in marriage and get the reward of taking all the nonsense. That's okay, that's fine. But why not have a happy marriage? Why not? I know it's better to have a roller coaster of a marriage where you learn about each other rather than a roundabout, which is boring. But if you've got more downs than up, it's about to have the balance. It's about to take on a path of gaining that balance again. And you're two different human beings. You've got no right to control the person, that person controlling you. You're a trust to each other. You're both cogs of the same machine. One's not better than the other one, except in Iman, and Allah SWT knows that. So that the more you learn about relationships in Islam, you will learn how to deal with your own relationship with your own self. So you can deal with the relationship of others. The more you learn about yourself, the more you allow and you understand. Instead of getting involved emotionally because there's a threat there, there's a defense mechanism, which you have to put in place every time somebody says something. You say, no, I'm not saying it for you to get defensive, I'm saying it to work at it. But the ego is not really a simple matter to deal with. And Allah knows best, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, brother Ramiz. Inshallah, we're going to take a break now for refreshments and Salat al-Asr. As I said previously, the masjid next door the Jama'ah in the masjid for Asr is at 5 o'clock, so brothers and sisters, you have 15 minutes